Welcome to this GCSE Maths video on ratios. In the two videos that I've already made, I've covered equivalent ratios and simplifying ratios. I've also looked at sharing and dividing using ratios. So this particular video is going to focus on ratio and proportion. Typically the sorts of questions you get on this involve some kind of mixing quantities. So for example, we could be mixing concentrated orange with water to make a drink. We could be mixing sand and cement for buildings, or we could be mixing flour, sugar, milk, etc. when making cakes. And this looks at the maths that we need to use when we want to make more or less, scaling amounts up or scaling amounts down. So let's look at a typical question that turns up in GCSE exams. Here's a bit of a chocolate cake recipe taken from one of Jamie Oliver's recipes, and we've got butter, chocolate, oil, sugar, eggs, flour and cocoa powder, and these quantities are enough to make cake to serve 6. So we're going to look at the maths that we need to do if we want to make this cake for 12, for 3 or for 20. Now the first two are probably the easier two examples, because if all of this makes cake 6 and we want to make it for twice as many people, then we would just double the amounts of everything. Yeah? So 500, 300 grams, 4 tablespoons, 600 grams, 12 eggs, 300 grams of flour, 8 tablespoons of cocoa powder. So hopefully that's straightforward enough. We look at the relationship between the 6 and the 12. We see it's double, and then that's what we do with the quantities. Similarly, we look at the 6 and the 3, and we see that if we want to make it for half the number of people that the recipe serves, then we are going to halve all these quantities. I'm not going to try and read them all out again. Just look at all these numbers and halve them. The one that might need a bit more thinking about is the one for 20, because 6 doesn't go into 20. So I want to look at how we would go about working out what to do to get from 6 to 20. So what I'd suggest you do this in 2 columns. The recipe serves 6. We want to make enough for 20. So we need to find something that goes into 6 and 20. And what I'm going to do is identify the highest common factor of 6 and 20. So I think, what times table has got 6 in it and 20? And that would be the 2 times table. So this is going to be my magic number here. So looking at this, I can see that to get from 6 to 2, I'm going to have to divide by 3. And then to get from 2 to 20, I'm going to have to times by 10. Yeah? It's important that we think of this in terms of timesing and dividing and not adding and subtracting. So having got this divide by 3 and times by 10, I'm going to do the same thing with the quantities. But I'm just going to show you the example here with the flour. I'm going to take the 150 grams of flour and divide by 3 to give me 50 grams. I'm then going to take the 50 grams and times by 10 to give me 500 grams. So that I would repeat with the sugar and all the rest of the ingredients. I notice it didn't ask me to do this for the eggs, because there are certain quantities dividing by 3 times in by 10 wouldn't give me a whole number. But I was only asked to do it for the flour, so there's an example of how we would go about that, finding a highest common factor. So let's look at another example. Here's another recipe, and we are focused on the flour. We've got metric and imperial measurements, but our question is using the metric measurements, and we're told that Amir has got 500 grams of self-raising flour, and we want to know, is this enough to make this cake to serve 10 people? So again, 4 doesn't go into 10 whole number of times, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to use that highest common factor method again, and 2 goes into 4 and goes into 10. So getting from 4 to 2 is a division by 2, and then from 2 to 10 I multiply by 5. So I'm going to do that same maths with the 225 grams of the flour. Dividing by 2 gives me 112.5, and then multiplying that by 5 gives me 562.5 grams. So that's telling me that Amir is going to need this amount of flour to make that cake for 10. But seeing as the question's told us he only has 500 grams, my answer would be to do this maths and then answer with these words or something like this and say no, he doesn't have enough flour. So there are a couple of quick examples of how to do recipe style ratio and proportion questions. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching and listening. Bye.